Hello, and welcome to the World Game Football Podcast, Episode 4. I'm your host, Ray Footy, and this is the official podcast for the United States Association Football Leagues, or the US-AFL. In this episode, we'll have the first of a two-part series where we'll talk to players and officials of a new club on the scene, Sandy Springs FC, which is a club in my own hometown in North Georgia. They are an amateur team in their first year of operation with aspirations of going pro. Their expressions will give a better idea of why there is a need for a league like the US-AFL that will have a structure of inclusion to give a different type of player a chance at a professional career outside of a top league within the country. Can the US-AFL help them realize this dream? We'll begin our first interview of this episode with Sandy Springs attacking midfielder and also a coach at Eagles Football Complex, Santy Mokgoatsana. Give us a little about your background in the game, where you came from and how you got introduced to the game.
Well, my background with soccer or football, as they call it in other countries, was in South Africa, which is where I was born. As a young person or as a child in South Africa, you are introduced into the football world at an early age. You know, your families, basically, they are part of fans of certain clubs. So you're raised into that club, whichever club it is that they are fans of. So I was a young kid, and I grew up in families of two different teams, which were rivals. But my cousin and everybody in my family as well were soccer players. And I used to watch them play, and I always wanted to get in and join. But as old as I can remember me walking, I used to nag him about him teaching me how to play and how to do things. So one day he decided to take me under his wing because he was actually being an understudy for a club in South Africa, which was the team that we supported, Kaizer Chiefs, which is one of the big teams in South Africa. He was, understudy. He was getting a trial with them, and he decided to start teaching me how to play when I was 5, so we could go outside, kick around and everything. By the time I was like 6, 7, 8, around that age, I was starting to play with kids his age, 10 years old, 13 years old. I was actually playing, really well with the basic fundamentals. But soccer was basically everywhere in South Africa. Mm-hmm. Everywhere you go outside and kids were playing. There were fields all over. We didn't have perfect fields, but there were fields all over for us to play, or we'd make up our own. So I was introduced to that environment from an early age, basically from the moment I was born. My father played semi-pro in South Africa as well, so it was something that was part of our culture, or our family value, basically. Everybody in my family played soccer at some point.
Right. So the more I have these conversations with different players from around the world, I hear the same sort of theme, that it's a part of the culture, it's what you grew up with, and, one way or another it's connected to the family. When you were growing up in South Africa there, who were your heroes as far as football players or teams?
My favorite team to the day, the team that I always have support undyingly for, is Kaizer Chiefs. That's the team that I was born into, and that's the team that my local city supports. The idol of our soccer team is Lucas Radebe, which was one of the best players to have been produced by South Africa in general.
Mm-hmm.
He played for our team for Kaizer Chiefs for quite some time, and he ever since I've seen him play, I've always wanted to play soccer. In my city and my country specifically was Lucas Radebe, including those other icons from the other worlds who were my favorite players to watch. And now my favorite team, of course, to support is Barcelona.
There you go. And that brings me to another question. Growing up there, of course, it became a culture. When did you know that you wanted to play the game sort of at a higher level, maybe professionally?
That began at a very early age. Again, when I was around 7, 8, I was playing with my cousins, but that was just for fun. Well, when I was, around 10, 11, that's when people started comparing me to certain players. I played with the flair of Luis Figo, but with the style of Zidane and Mbappe, because those were the two people I watched a lot. Mm-hmm. And that's where they used to call me them, and I started getting calls from clubs around, the city where I lived, played for a lot of teams. And that's when I realized that this is something I love doing. It's just when I'm on the field, nothing really mattered, and that's when I realized, like, I would love to do this every day. I would literally get home from school, run to practice, and that's when I realized this is something I can do day in and day out and never be tired of it, because it's something I love doing. I actually was supposed to have a trial with the under 18 or under 16, under 16 and 18 for the South African national team, but I moved before I got a chance to do that. So, from the early age, I knew I wanted to do that for life. It's something that I wanted to have and had a passion for at a very, very early age.
With that type of background, that brings another question to me, because you made your way to the States, of course, and there's a different world here, football-wise, I'm sure. So you went from, having the possibility of a trial with the South African national team to having football as a part of the culture, to a place where the game was kind of foreign to you, or foreign to the people around you. How was that transition? Was it difficult for you to make that transition in the States?
Yes, it was fairly difficult for me to come into the United States and leave a country where the culture of football is so rich, where you could find a team in any place or find people playing anywhere, and coming to a place where American football, basketball, baseball are so big. And I had no idea of their backgrounds or what they were when I moved here, And moving into a place like this and being so excited about soccer, thinking that I would come to America and be the shining star because nobody really plays, was difficult because I couldn't find a team. It was nowhere to find a place where people played soccer. It was either American football, baseball, or basketball. They were the three biggest things you could find around. And once you found a soccer team, you had to pay around thousands of dollars to join a club team. And for a person of different culture and a different background and coming to a foreign land, you don't have that much money to put into a soccer club. That limits your chances of playing and developing and becoming bigger and being noticed in this country. And that's what kind of was hard for me, because it was easier for me to find teams, and I didn't have to spend that much money for me to play. Whereas until I came to America, it was everything I had to do to become a soccer player was to pay, or you cannot play. And that was the hardest thing to get around, finding leagues where you didn't have to pay to play.
Yeah, and that remains a real problem, and it's one of the motivations behind the US-AFL, where there are people and fans getting together to put together a league to kind of go against what's going on right now in the status quo, so to speak, where you have these youth elite clubs where you have to pay to play and all of these things. Let me ask you this: if there was a league that allowed you, to play professionally, even at a lower level than the first and second division, so to speak, would that appeal to you?
Yes, it definitely would. Because to me, it's not really about starting at the highest place. You have to work your way up. If there was a league that was giving people chances to at least promote themselves and their quality or their work in the field would show up, and they'll get promoted to the higher division, even though it's not the MLS, I'd feel a lot better, and I'd be more interested in playing in that way, because there will be a certain level of competition on the field. Whereas if you play the MLS, there's really no competition until the end of the season, where people are trying to get into the playoffs. And with that being said, it makes the sport dull. There's no desire to win until you have to go to the playoffs, and that's when people start playing. Therefore, if I was in a league where I had a chance to play professionally, and there's a chance of relegation and a promotion, every game will be like a last game for everybody, because you're not trying to lose points, and that to me is more interesting than being paid $100,000 not to really care and play one game or two games, really give you all out to make the playoffs, and then 4 games to really show what you're made of. I'd rather be able to play all season, every game, putting 110% and entertaining the people, because that's what the sport is about. It's about entertainment. That would be a wonderful thing to do. I would love to be one of the people that were inspired by that league, or to inspire other people by that league, and I would love to be a part of that. I would be absolutely 100% for it.
Well, we definitely love to have you in the league as well as the club. So, and if you would relate briefly, if you would, the attempt you made to play with an NASL team. It happened to be the Atlanta Silverbacks. You had a sort of a trial. But what was the problem with going on that trial for this club, for this professional club?
The problem with the club was going into the trial. One, there were three things that I did not weren't really good with me. Was the fact that people had to pay to go try out, and then two was
That's incredible.
and then, which really to me is like I get it, but I understand the fact that you get 600 people to pay a certain amount of money, and you only have a spot for 20-some people.
Yeah, you made quite a profit.
Yeah, that was kind of like something I didn't get, and you can tell that most of it is for profit to make money for their teams, which is okay. But there was also the fact that I was put in a position that I do not play, because they already have their mindset of what they want me to do, and the mindset of who they already picked on the team. And I was played as a center defender, and I'm 5'7" at the most.
Yeah.
And playing center back at 5'7" against 6'2" players, it's really a difficult thing to do, and it's not and as well as it's not your position. But I did have a good trial. I scored some goals. I played defense well. I didn't get scored on. I also played midfield, whereas is where I shined. I got a couple of assists. I got 4 assists and 2 goals in one game. Then going into the final trial, I was told that I need to come back to the reserve because I wasn't really that big. I wasn't a big player. So physique was the problem. It wasn't more of a technique thing, or my technical skill was more of a physique aspect. I wasn't big. I wasn't broad like the players that they want here. And that makes it difficult for people because they don't nurture your talents. They want you to be a certain way, and they can just teach you how to kick and run, which is not the way to play. It's a thinking man's sport, just like golf. You have to think and analyze your opponent. You just don't kick and run. And that's what was hard with that tryout, because I did everything I could and I was playing good, and everybody actually that I tried out against thought I would make the team, but they didn't want me because I wasn't big enough, which was the hardest thing, to want to keep trying in the leagues like that when they look over talent and take size.
Yeah, that again, another motivation to this league. There's been some question about why we want to create a league, an open league that accepts all clubs that want to join, that meet a certain criteria, and also institute promotion and relegation as a way to earn your way up. I mean, there's no limit to where you can go. And some people seem to be against the idea. I'm not sure why, because when I hear your story, it's worth the effort to try to be more inclusive to the type of player that, for instance, that you are, as opposed to just one type of, big, brawny, strong, fast guys. You need skill. You need a variety of skill, and the game will flourish with more. It's good here, but it could be so much better. So one last question, with you playing with Sandy Springs, right now it's an amateur club and they have aspirations. I've talked to Coach Broom, and there are aspirations for this club to advance and become professional and move on. And we here at US-AFL believe that it'll be easier to do that in an environment like our league than it would be trying to appeal to the NASL or be chosen by an MLS team, later on. But how far do you want to go with the club, Sandy Springs FC, or just individually as a playing professional? How far do you want to go?
As an individual playing professional, I would love to play at the highest level of the football. I would love to be a professional. That was my goal, and it was still my goal, till the day I can't make it or I cannot play anymore. I would love to be a professional, not even about the name or about the fame. It's just really about myself and, testing my limits and seeing how well I could have done or how well I can do it.
Yeah.
Using all my abilities and my skills to achieve the goals that I've set for myself ever since I was a kid. I've had heroes, and I would like to be somebody's hero someday, even if I'm not a big name, but just some kid sees, this guy's from my country or from my city, made it big, let me try, and we can make it. and from then on, one person can help another and you help another. It might not be the way this helped me, but, I can inspire somebody, and that's what my goal is. I want to be an inspiration to somebody by being a professional, showing them that whatever you want to do, just fight for it. There will be obstacles, but you can make it. And that's my biggest thing. I don't want to give up into this because that just makes me quit.
Mm-hmm.
As a team who sings things, I would love for us to go professional together because we have a really great team and a good core players. And again, if we can go to the US-AFL, the league, it would be better for us because we can get a chance to get promoted by our work. We don't have to worry about having to put a sanction in and waiting to get a response just in case they want us or they don't want us. There's so many flares in having to ask or wait to be invited into a league where if you're performing and it shows as a league willing to accept you to a next level because you've performed and you have touched your group, would be better, because now we don't have to worry about all this political aspect of soccer. We just focus on playing, and that's really what we got to do. And as we perform and get, better, we can get promoted, which is what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to be rewarded for your excellent play. So that's where I would like for us to go into a different league where it can.
Yeah, well, we're working hard on this end, and hopefully we can help you as well as other players and officials realize this dream where you have, your destiny in your own hands instead of, a league official's hands, so to speak. So, but Santy, I want to thank you for taking time out to talk to us here at US-AFL, and we appreciate the support, and we look forward to working with your team in our league very soon.
Thank you very much, sir. And I hope everything goes well, and I'll be open and ready for you guys whenever you need me to help. I'll be here as much as willing.
All right. We'd like to thank Santy for his expressions that we hope will help explain why we're motivated to create a league that he can be included, something that has been out of his reach in the current setup within the country. Next up is teammate Gustavo Duran, and he will also give his opinions and thoughts on the US-AFL and what it could mean for his club. First of all, give me a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how did you get introduced to the game? Just tell me that.
Well, I'm from Mexico. Mm-hmm. I'm from Acapulco, Guerrero. I got introduced to the game because where I'm from, there was nothing else to play than soccer ball, I was introduced to it by my friends. My friends started to go play soccer, and I wasn't really into it at a soon age, but as I got older, I started liking it. As I watched soccer more and more on TV and all of that stuff, it just made me want to follow my dream, like they say.
Would you say that the game was sort of a part of the culture that you grew up in?
Yes, both. That's basically what I'm trying to say. It was part of my culture. Wherever I went, there was people playing soccer in Mexico. They play it on the street. It's not like here that you have to go to a soccer field and play it. They play it anywhere. They play it in the street. Mm-hmm. They just get 2 rocks, put it on the floor, and that's a goal. And then you have a soccer ball, and you play barefooted.
There you go.
So, yeah, that's a culture.
So, you grew up there, you had the sport as a part of your culture, and then you made your way to the United States. But when you got here, I know there had to be sort of a cultural shock when it came to the game. I mean, was it difficult to adjust to the way things were in the States? And maybe tell me a couple of experiences where it was difficult.
Yeah, mainly here because I couldn't find a club to play for. I wanted to play for a club, because every kid wants to be part of something, honestly. I just wanted to be part of a team. So they have Hispanic leagues, and I started playing with my friends, but that wasn't enough. I wanted more, so I went to look for clubs. It's pretty hard when, especially I didn't have help from my parents. I didn't have transportation. That was the main thing. And I didn't have money to pay for the club.
Right.
So I gave it up for a couple of years, between 12 and 13. But when I got to 14, I kept on playing every day at my house and everywhere. I got offered a scholarship for Alianza, which is a club.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
And they started helping me out, which is a Hispanic club, The people in there they were like, you want to play with us? And yeah, sure. And I just had, from there on, it was just a matter of transportation, I also tried to play for Concord Fire, for all of those clubs, and I went to tryouts and I made the club, but when it came down to the money, and they said you have to pay $700 up front, I was like, where do I get that kind of money from?
Yeah,
I don't have that kind of money.
I keep hearing that same story, Gustavo. Yeah. And another thing that's interesting that I keep hearing, and Santy said it and everything, is that the way that you're able to find leagues and games to play generally is from, for lack of a better word, the immigrant population. People from all over the world who've come here where the game is a part of their culture. You can get with them, and they have their following. They're not really interested in MLS and NASL and everything. They got their own thing. And so the US-AFL, I think that appeals to us more so than the demographic that's now currently going after the MLS and NASL. Because the way that we're structuring the leagues, people like yourself, your teammate Santy, your coach Jay Broom, they get it. Yeah. They understand the importance of having open leagues, promotion and relegation, and things like that. The people that seem to be against us, that want these closed leagues, that want MLS, don't seem to have that same background in the game, that same link to the culture of the game. And so that's why we think we can make this work, because we're going after people that already like what we have. We don't have to convince you. And what you said, it's so interesting because it's funny. You get here and only immigrants and people from all over the world do leagues like that. No one else does. You don't see people from here actually doing those kind of leagues or trying to work in them. But that's so interesting. Now that you pointed out, it's really interesting. Yeah. Well, let me ask you one more question because I know you got to go, Gustavo. But, as an individual player, how far do you want to go as a player? Do you want to go and be a professional and play at the highest level? Do you want to remain amateur? What do you want to do?
I mean, being honest with you, I don't think it's just me. I think that every soccer player who really loves the sport, who is really because I can't stop playing, man. Even if I try. Even if I try to stop and just start working and building a family or whatever it is, I will still play, yes. And even if I was to stop playing, I will still watch the game, and I will still support the game. So, honestly, yes, my goal is to be a professional soccer player, but if it's not that, I'll still follow it, man. I'm going to stick to the game for long. I'll tell you that.
I believe you, man. Great, man. Gustavo, thanks for your expressions and your time here. And we look forward to having you in our league, as soon as possible. You're the caliber of person that we want. And so we appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
All right. No problem, man.
That's all the time we have for today, but we'll be back next week with the second half of interviews with current Sandy Springs FC players and the head coach, Jay Broom, to give more of their feelings about the goals of the US-AFL and their frustrations with the current setup within the country. In coming weeks, you'll hear from more players, officials, and fans from around the nation as we discuss our plans and progress in establishing the league. We'll also continue the segments The Fans Q&A and Clearing the Smoke in coming episodes. If you have a question or comment for us, don't hesitate to drop us a line at podcast@us-afl.com or simply like us on our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter to leave your question or comment. Thank you again for listening, and we look forward to talking with you again next week.